So, this is the last lecture, as I mentioned, and you remember the last item. The last item focused the age after decline of Amsterdam. Amsterdam, a little bit age of transition between city-state, like, for example, Genoa, like Venice, and the modern national state. I hope you remember in the last week I spoke about two national states had a chance to win the position of the leading force, leading position of globalizing world economy. France and England. Last week I spoke about weaknesses of France, for example, the gigantism, too large for efficient direction, and moreover, it's a regional rivalry between Mediterranean area of France and the Atlantic area of France weakened the position of France. Moreover, had two capitals. Economic capital, it was a Lyon, and the political capital is both Paris. Okay, and we started analyzing the story of winner is England, and the capital of England are London. Oh, sorry, switch on the... The first advantage of England, the moderate size. The moderate size. You remember geography of British Isle is only whole of the British Isle, both island is only less than half of size of France. It's very moderate. Moreover, the size of England is a little bit more than 100,000 square kilometers. It's very easy to direct and govern efficiently. The second one are separation. Separation from the continental area, continental political power, political conflicts, and became a starting age of isolation. Isolation is very, very popular political position, because if somebody participates in the continental conflict, it's almost continuously, it's following a series of military campaigns. Isolation somehow saved our island from political conflicts and political problem of continental area. And the highest, quite a moderate area, because you remember geographical knowledge is that during the Ice Age, it's covered a huge ice cover. Therefore, if somebody visited in England, the orographical position quite a moderate. The highest position is a Ben Nevis, a little bit more than 1,000 meter altitude. It's a quite moderate area. Okay. How became England an island, as I mentioned? Last week I spoke about more detailed form. Lost the 100 Years' War against France, French Kingdom, and lost the last headquarter on the continental part in the middle of 16th century. And according to definition of Fernand Braudel, England acted province or group of provinces within the Anglo-French unit, which was in its entirety. This is the situation of the Middle Ages. England didn't separate it from the continental area because a lot of king and the dynasty came from the southern part of the France. The last connection cut by English Reformation. There is an Anglican in the audience. No Anglican, because if somebody know the custom and the right in different Christian community, Anglican, the closest one to the Roman Catholic Church, is very, very light version of Reformation. Okay, this is the channel you can see on the map. It's a channel. It's a floating bulwark, as I named by historian, divide and separate from the continental area. A consequence of losing a continental connection. Investment from the continental entertainment and operation turned toward to improving the inner area. For example, improvement of lands, for example, water regulation. It's a classical investment after the losing of continental connection. Reclamation, forest, marsh and heath. Acquisition control above whole of the island, because it's very important to mention that beside the English kingdom had three Celtic area, Wales, Scotland and Ireland. The formation of national market. The formation of national market was a consequence of political ambition of English elite. Into the colonial world trade and colonial empire, location of England ideal. Why? Because this is the entrance to continental trade and entrance to the Atlantic colonial trade toward Americas. And very important formation of national identity, the bombarded fortress psychosis. As its function since the invincible armada, you know, it was a Spanish armada who in the late 16th century tried to organize an invasion, and until the Second World War. England, it's an elementary how the name is, elementary element of national identity, that time by time there is a danger of continental invasion. Continental invasion from Spain, later continental invasion from France, later continental invasion from Germany. Therefore, it's continuously on the history of formation of English national identity based to a bombarded fortress psychosis. Okay, some historical sources. English hate us, wrote by Sully, Ambassador Extraordinary Henry IV. English hate us, and with hatred so strong and so widespread derived from bombarded fortress psychosis, tempted to number among the natural disposition of these people. Other one, a French traveler in the middle of 18th century, on the time of Enlightenment, English considered their own pretension as rights and rights of their neighbors as usurpation. Okay, consequence, each economic and political power pushed out from the British side. The first victim, Italian merchant. Italian merchant lost the trading position. The second one, Hanseatic League. You remember the story? Hanseatic League, this is the organization of city network in the Baltic Sea, pushed out on the second half of 16th century from England. The next one founded the Royal Exchange against Antwerp, which was on the first half of 16th century the core area and leading city of forming global economy, and organized stock companies against the first colonizers, Spanish and Portuguese, and finally the navigation acts against a huge fleet of Netherlands. Okay. The first milestone of formation of local national state, national economy, and the great ambition of colonization, and became a leading city, leading area of global world economy, are introduction of new currency, pound sterling. And I call your attention in the last week, if we would like to, how change the value of pound sterling. It's a line, very, very stable line. Any other European currency, up, down, but a very stable position of pound sterling. This is the reason and consequence of very stable performance of English economy. The second one, which we saw in the last week, how changed the population of Celtic countries under England. Thus, the demographer, historical demographer, calculated as a part of England because even in the 13th century occupied, conquered by English kingdom. Population of Wales, this is the highest the population, started at the beginning of early modern time, 2.5 million, and to the beginning of 19th century, 9.2 million. Scotland, much lower density of population, and Ireland take the same pace, same rhythm of increase, and started at the beginning of 18th century with 2.5 million, and to the beginning of 19th century, 5.2 million. Therefore, population of Ireland step by step, step closer and closer to the population of English kingdom. This is a diagram about the same consequences. Only Ireland was dangerous according to historical demographical point of view. Scotland never. Scottish population, it's very, very low. Okay. The second important peculiarity of English economic evolution and the formation of national market, determining position of London. London, in international comparison, is one of the largest cities, whole of Europe. On the time, in the 17th century, only two cities on the European civilization reached 500,000, Paris and London, but had a lot of advantage on the side of London. Which were the most important advantage? London, it was a huge integration of political, economic, and generally the market power. Look at the first. The determining district of London, Westminster, City, the Port, and the Southwark. Westminster, this is the area, this is the district of political power. This is the location of royal court, this is the position of the parliament, this is the district of different ministries. A political power and the government in general sense. You remember there were and there are two forms of allocation of goods. Redistribution. Redistribution means government and general sense, the state picking with help of taxes and the fees income, a national income, and redistribute according to interest of state. And for example, finance army, finance fleet, finance, for example, governmental investment. Therefore, this is the redistribution. The core area of redistribution is London, District Westminster. If we are looking at the history of France, which is the place of area and the city of redistribution, Paris, of course, the political capital. Look at the second one. Second one is a city. A city in the French history, this is the function of Lyon, an economic capital, economic district, but in the case of England, located on the frame of same city. Therefore, redistribution and the market distribution reinforce one to other. No rivalry like happened in the history of France between Lyon and Paris. And the port, on the time of colonization, on the time of great geographical discovery, Port of England was the strongest whole of the British Isles. A little bit later, I will show for you one diagram about the capacity of Port of London and capacity any other ports of England. And the last one, Southwark. Southwark is the district of entertainment. District of entertainment with a lot of theaters, This is the place where founded the famous theater of Globe. You know the Globe? This is the theater of Shakespeare. But beside the Globe had 17 other theaters. 17 other ones. And compared with the Paris, in Paris, which played great career and recovery on the 18th century, on the time, in the 16th century, only one. The Royal Theatre, no any other. Therefore, a southward became a capital of literature and the art in general sense. And very famous introduction in the world of theater, a street theaters. Probably if you visited in Western Europe and the large city, a street theater, it's a classical street performance. But in England, had a great tradition of street theater. Not only, for example, some special skills demonstrate, but whole story able to play. You know, for example, which followed this heritage in the 20th century, a Monty Python. Monty Python is very famous street theater community, came from the very long heritage of street theater practice in London. Okay, this is the diagram which I mentioned, compared with the capacity of port of London, much larger any other ports of England, even Liverpool, Newcastle, Ipswich, any other. This is the largest one. Therefore, if we are looking at the history of England, there is a huge capital. Because the population on the time, critical period, 17th century, the population, whole of England, 6 million only, 6 million. On the same time, there is a voter head on the body of the English kingdom. This is the London, half million. Majority of economic, cultural, and political activity focused to London. These peculiarities are which determined London to the leading position of the globalizing economy. And until the beginning of 20th century, London was the leading city, whole of global economy. Okay, some background information about the advantage of English national market. Before the railway network, the navigable waterways covered not only the coastal area, but large part of the continental area of England. Help a lot for forming a national market. And look at the history, how unified the British Isle by England. The first victim was Wales. Edward I conquered Wales even the 12th century. Sometimes try to organize upheaval for how the name is independence of the country. The most successful was the revolt over Grindover on the time of 100 Years' War, when the English army exported to the battlefield of France. And since the 16th century, Wales became a province of heir of the throne, Prince of Wales. And for conquering and pacification of the country, necessary some common interest. And the common interest between the Welsh and the English elite was agrarian orientation, agrarian specialization. A little bit same story I speak for Hungarian students. Hungary and Hungarian Kingdom was a part of Austro-Hungarian integration, and the common interest was, in the case of Austria, Czechia and Hungary, for Hungary, the agrarian specialization. This was the production of the foods for other provinces. Played the same role by Vas, became a cattle drawing area like Hungary. But it's if somebody interesting for the Hungarian history, during the same period, early modern time, Hungary exported the best year 200,000 cattle, year by year, to Vienna, to Venice, to Brno, it's located Czechia, Moravia, more exactly, and Nuremberg, Augsburg, the southern German city. A little bit same. It's a peripheral area, low density of population, large grazing land, specialized to cattle breeding. Okay, Vas pacified with on the base of common interest, on imperial integration. Okay, Scotland a little bit more complicated story. If somebody watched the movie of Braveheart with the starring of Mel Gibson, you know. Everybody imagined that the Scottish people prefer the freedom and never would like to integrate to England. It's not true. It's not true. The Scottish Parliament asked the integration. But necessary to mention two areas, Scotland, a lowland and a highland. Which is the differences between the lowland and highland? In the area of lowland, south from Edinburgh and Glasgow, the rural population and the urban population changed the language. But very special, somebody visited in Scotland? Awful dialect speaking. I tried to buy a ticket on the railway station of Edinburgh and asked from the employee, I would like a ticket to St. Andrews, and answered something. I wasn't able to understand. I wasn't sure we are speaking in the same language, because it's very, very harsh Scottish dialect spoken. Okay, lowland, on the area of lowland, saved a original Celtic language, but very, very small community. Basically, this diagram shows the subsistence crisis. What means the subsistence crisis? It's a shortage, hunger, bad harvest. It's a crisis. It's a surviving crisis. If we are looking at this diagram, majority of early modern time, from the beginning of 16th century until the beginning of 18th century, it's a lot of problem, a lot of economic problem. Why? You remember, as I mentioned before, in the middle of the course, that this is the period of Little Ice Age. You remember the story of Charles Dickens, author from the 19th century. Very harsh, very cold climate on the time. Therefore, Scotland located a peripheral economic area, peripheral agrarian area. Therefore, harvest of cereals is very bad, which made an agrarian and feeding crisis. Therefore, economic and political integration so weak and so bad that the Scottish people asked integration to England in 1707, and basically unified two kingdoms on the base of common rulers. Okay, look at Ireland. Ireland, this is the most problematic area, most problematic Celtic country, because it's a very large country. You remember, at the beginning of 19th century, 5 million. In the middle of 19th century, even 8 million. It's very, very harshly grow the population. Why? Because Ireland was a very special status. This was the first colony of England, And English conqueror organized a truncated society. You know which is the truncated society? A contemporary society described as a pyramid. On the top of the pyramid there is a king. On the next, a nobleman, a nobility, bourgeoisie, peasant, and marginal social groups. Beggars, immigrants, so and so. But the free, steady social group is the nobility, bourgeoisie, and the peasantry. And after conquering of Ireland, a conqueror, English and the Scottish conqueror, truncated the Irish society. Forming a truncated society means a Scottish and English conqueror occupied the position of nobility, position of bourgeoisie, and peasantry became a synonym of Irish. And the boundary between upper and lower part of society determine a social position, religion, and the language for a long time. But recently assimilated, and the Irish population speaking a very soft version of English. Okay, turn back the story. Which is the boundary between the upper and lower part of Irish society? Upper part, nobility and bourgeoisie, formed by English and Scottish, which spoke English, which different representatives of different Reformation, Anglican Reformation, Calvinist Reformation, Lutheran Reformation, but Reformed Church. In Down, Irish people, peasants, spoke a Celtic language and Roman Catholic. It's very, very deep boundary, separated two parts of society, upper and lower part of society, hate each other very, very deeply. Until the beginning of 21st century, had a terrorism in North Ireland. Ireland appeared on the international map only after the First World War. From the Middle Age and the closing year and the peace treaty after the First World War, no Ireland on the international maps. And even now, the worst personal relations are between Irish and English. It's a very, very dark story. Good. And this is the story of Ireland at the beginning of middle of 19th century, reached the 8 million. And somebody know the story of Irish potato famines? Who know Irish potato famines? Okay, Irish potato famine unfolded in the 40s of the 19th century. You know the basic story. Ireland, a colonial status. Majority of estate on the hand of conqueror, English and Scottish. And the small estate of Irish peasant produced potato. You remember the story. Potato came from America, southern part of America. Carrying capacity of potato compared to wheat, generally the cereals, barley and any others, 6-fold higher. Potato, 6-fold higher, people able to feed, 6-fold. Therefore, the poor Irish peasant converted to potato production as a monoculture. But when changed the plants, changed the animals between different civilizations, not only the plants and animals and ideas and the people changed, but even the sickness, even the epidemics. You know the story of COVID-19. Happened the same. not only the first experience for the global epidemics was COVID-19. At the beginning of 40s, from America arrived a fungi infection. You know which is the fungi infection. There are three types of infection: bacterial, virus, and fungi. This is the fungi infection. Arrived from Americas. The infected bulbs of potato and proliferated everywhere, whole of Europe. A little bit same story. Somebody cultivated potato, cultivation experience about, no, okay. You believe that I am speaking the truth, I hope, anyway. For example, you listen something about the Colorado bugs. This is the small insect. My parents' generation never knew about the Colorado bugs because the first infected transport of potato from America after the Second World War arrived Europe. My parents, during their childhood, know any experience about the Colorado bug. Colorado, this is the one state of United States. This infected transport came from Colorado and named after that. A little bit same story, arrived the Phytophthora infestans and proliferated everywhere in Europe, and the harvest, the potato harvest, rotten. Whole of that. Any other area, because the potato is the west and northwestern area, the ideal. It's a little bit humid, a little bit lower temperature. This is the typical northwestern Europe. This is the typical area of cultivation. Rotten, whole of the harvest. But in Germany, in the Baltic area, potato, only one plant. Beside that had a rye, had a barley, any other cereals. And the good harvest of other cereals compensated the losing of potato harvest. But Ireland, no chance for that. Because the Irish peasant specialized only potato famine. Therefore, for period of potato famine started 46 and closed 50, almost 1.5 million people disappeared from Ireland. Half died and half emigrated. And very interesting the story. This is the catastrophic potato famine period, epidemics, which was the killer of the underfed people. And very interesting, the direction of emigration. One direction of emigration was east coast of United States. If somebody, for example, watching a great series and the movies of mafia and the criminals and so on, this is the eastern community of Irish people. And other direction of emigration, Australia. And a third direction of emigration, Scotland. England never, but Scotland. And founded a famous football club in Scotland. Which one? A color of football club help a lot. Which is the official color of Irish? Green. Which Scottish football club color is a green? Celtic. Somebody watching a football match? Only me? Somebody. Which football club the most important rivals for the Scottish championship? Glasgow Rangers, it's a local Scottish Reformed Church, very patriotical club, and the Celtic, which is the club of Roman Catholic immigrants. It's quite a typical in the different European championship that the club demonstrates somehow the local identity. Look at, for example, FC Barcelona, Army of Catalonia, Athletic Bilbao, Army of Basque area, or, for example, Hungary. In Hungary, the winner, the most winner of championship is a Ferencváros, which was a German district, even between the two World War period, a bilingual, a German minority founded Ferencváros. This is a district of Budapest, which was the most important rival. MTK. It's a Hungarian athletic club, which was the founder, a Jewish. And very interesting, a Hungarian national team founded a player of two ambitious minority, a German and Jews. It's very interesting. Okay, but turn back to the story of formation of London and the English economic market. Ireland, it's collapsed after the Irish potato famine. And very interesting, somebody watched the football match of Ireland? No? Irish national team, never? Yeah, but it's very sad. Each national team had a song. It's general sense, a song of national team is very aggressive, ambitious, except the Irish. Irish song of national team, this is a ballad. It's very dark and very sorrow. A song from the history of Irish potato famines. And singing, we are poor, we are weak, we are victims of the history, but we are together. It's unbelievable listening the national song of national team. It's very, very interesting. Somehow reflect to the spirit, the collective spirit of the Irish people. Okay, this is the Irish wave of emigration, as I mentioned. And finally, not only on the base of integration of redistribution and market distribution, but international network of financial system, not by chance, the city at the turn of 18th and 19th century became the global financial center of the global economy. Stock of Exchange, which founded at the end of 16th century, and Bank of England, as I mentioned, founded by Irish capitals, organized a very strong network, financial network, from London to whole of continental area. And very interesting question, the problem of national debt. If we are looking recently, probably you know, in which country the highest one, the national debt? United States. But on the time of London, the highest one, a national debt, was on the hand of English Kingdom. And this is the problem. National debt is good or bad. Generally, if, for example, do you have a personal debt? It's a loan? Nobody yet. It's good condition. Because I hate it, but some problem, I wasn't able, for example, buying a building, necessary to ask a loan from the bank. The problem with the national debt, not the existence and the rate of national debt, but the direction of investment. And very interesting, this is the advantage of history. In the history, we are analyzing the story which closed yet. Therefore, we know the starting position, the trajectory, and the closing result. And if we are looking, for example, increase of national debt of English kingdom, invested very good direction. Why? Because applied a new strategy. Each economy, even the Egypt on the old dynasty, able produce a benefit, a profit. The crucial question, how using the benefit? For example, one possible option, construct the pyramids. This is an investment. Construct a luxury building, like for example happened in Madrid, capital of Spain. And the English economy and the English businessman applied a great innovation, reinvested the benefit, and increased the speed of economy. And at the turn of 18th and 19th century, launched one economic process which never before, the process and the procedure of self-sustainable growth. Because the growth happened, recovery happened a lot of times in the history. But at the turn of 18th and 19th century, in consequence, basically, the global integration and the new strategy, reinvestment of benefit to the economy, launched a new trajectory, a self-sustainable growth. And recently, if somebody would like to speak some simple information about the economy, the crucial question, there is or there is not a growth. Okay, this is the formal material of economy of formation before the age of New York. This is the continental story. It's a European story. Look at some consequence of globalized economy, which determine our everyday life. In consequence of global economy and global integration and stepping in the age of Anthropocene, age of human, and the economic growth, change a lot of element our physical environment. The most important, most dangerous consequence of industrial revolution, the global warming. The global warming. For example, this is the trajectory, how changed the temperature of globe in consequence of industrial fossil fuel, burning of fossil fuel. Started with coal, later oil and nuclear power and so on and so on. Fossil fuel in general sense. You can follow the trajectory. The warming started at the turn of 19th and 20th century, but in the middle of 20th century stopped the warming. Stop the warming. I am quite aged that I remember when at the turn of 19th and 20th and 21st century, a lot of scholars discussed, it's not true, not warming. Why? Because only up and later down. You remember the story of Second World War. Each of winter of Second World War was very, very cold. You remember the movie Enemy on the Gate, about the Battle of Stalingrad. It's very cold. Half of the German army frozen. The same happened on the time of a battle and the siege of Budapest, capital of Hungary. In the zoo of Budapest, only 2 exotic animals survived. The huge. I asked here, no? This is the guess. Last guess. Which animal, exotic animal? The rat was not exotic. Rat survived everything. Exotic animal, only 2 survived the long siege. 100 days long siege, second one on the history of Second World War. The winner is Leningrad, St. Petersburg, of course. 3 years, it's no rival, no competitor. But the second one was Budapest, during winter time. Which animal? Exotic animal, not temperate climate. African animal, both. Camel. Camel survived everything. Which other one?
Elephant.
No? Elephant killed very early and ate because it was a long siege. Hippopotamus. You know which is the hippopotamus. Hippopotamus, the most dangerous animal, whole of African fauna. Whole. Most people killed by hippo than lion and any other predator. Why? Because if somebody looking the hippopotamus, it's a slow animal. It's not true. It's a very short distance, but very, very fast. Okay, the second one, reason of survival of hippopotamus, that Budapest located a tectonic line. There are a lot of hot water wells. And the basin of hippopotamus filled a natural hot water well. And the hippopotamus only looking from basin, never left and survived. Because the grass is very, very large and financed the survival on this basis. Okay, and the last time when the Danube frozen over happened 1963. And a lot of people thought it's only a temporal climate change, but 1988, this is the turning point. Not only in Hungary, not only in Europe, but whole of the globe. From 1988, it's blow up the climate and the warming. And if you follow, because this is the period of your life, year by year, the temperature up, and the records, it's happened for the instrumental period in the last 2 decades. Therefore, the speed of warming increased only after the end, last decade and the beginning decades of the last decade of 20th century, beginning decades of the 21st century. And which is the background of this warming? Okay, if we are looking at the human history on long term, there are some exponential process. For example, this is the exponential process of growth of human population. For example, 74 before Christ estimate a human population 5,000. A humankind on the time of a great disaster of volcano eruption of Indonesia, it's named Toba volcano, was very close to the extinction, as a race extinction. At the beginning of Christian calendar, here, okay, estimate the human population around 200 and 300 million. And a human population approximately at the beginning of 19th century, yes, reached one, if we are using British English, 1 million, or American English, 1 billion, but using a British English, 1 million. On the time of closing year of Second World War, 1949, reached 2.5 million in the middle of 20th century. At the end of 20th century, reached 6 million, and recently we are a little bit over of 8 million. The first point of view, we may thinking that this is exponential. Endlessly will continue. It's not true. A modernization slowed down. Not only in Europe, everywhere, even in Bangladesh. And look at, for example, China or India, slow down the growth of population according to demographical forecast, probably global population will stop around 12, a little bit under 12 million. Okay. A very interesting calculation, if you imagine how many years lived a human on the world. A historical demographer calculated. For example, I am 61 years old. Therefore, I take to the years, to the global year capital of humankind, 61 years. You are a little bit less, but you are at the beginning of your life. And calculated, reconstructed that 4 million of the human race, the humankind, lived, it's American English, change back to the American English, 80 billion people. 80 billion people. 80 billion people, it's a simplification, but you can realize the dimension. Lived 2.16 trillion years, and how concentrated toward the modern time, the concentration of living years, because, for example, in the antiquity, in the Athens of Pericles, everybody know personally each other. But as increase the population, majority we are not able to know, taking a connection. You can see, for example, the function of social media. Social media. In the circle of social media, you can define the clan, the tribe. This is the 50 or 60 people. This is the tribe inside of the social media connection. The second circle, the village. 200 or 300 people. You are not regularly, but time by time, some connection. For example, felicitation, birthday, and so on and so on. But practically, we are living in tribe and the village. It's defined by social media. Okay. 26% of years which lived by human happened after 1750. 20% happened after the beginning of the 20th century, and 13% happened after the middle of 20th century. It's statistical calculation, but somehow able to demonstrate how concentrating, how increase the concentration of the life, concentration of the activity of humankind. Okay. Very interesting, our relation with the physical environment. Because in the traditional time, before Industrial Revolution, we are the rivals of rats, rivals of elephants, rivals of, for example, wolves. But in consequence of Industrial Revolution, we made artificial environment. This is the age of Anthroposphere and the Anthropocene. We are living in the Anthropocene. Not only on the visible world, but even in the invisible world too. Our environmental historian defined this is the biological coup d'etat of humanity. Coup d'etat, you know, that taking the power. Because, why the coup d'etat? Why happened? Because in the historical past, this is the biological pyramid. On the top of biological pyramid, locate the human. On the bottom, virus and bacteria and fungi. If something happened on the bottom, like for example Black Death, it's somehow the stability of the pyramid changed. But in consequence of modern clinical curing, humankind organized a coup d'etat against the biological bottom area of biological pyramids. How? Happened two crucial problems for the modernizing societies. Industrialization, from one year to other, from decades to other, increase the size of cities. For example, you know Manchester. Manchester, if somebody interested for the football, it's a location of Manchester City and the Manchester United, but it's other story. Manchester, in the middle of the 18th century, number of inhabitants, it's 20,000. It's quite a moderate. But 50 years later, 300,000. 300. It's blow up without infrastructure. Therefore, in consequence of industrialization, proliferated a lot of sickness, epidemic, everything. Therefore, the contemporary state and government necessary to solve the problem of infection. First. Secondly, a colonization. A lot of Europeans travel to Australia, China, India, Indonesia, and no natural immunity. And the generations of colonizers died in local colonial epidemics. Therefore, on the second half of 19th century, the contemporary rich state, England, France, Belgium, Netherlands, invested huge amount to the biological research. The first step, identification of enemies. Because on the time of Black Death, everybody imagined mythological stories about the reason of infection. But Louis Pasteur and later Alexander Fleming identified the bacteria. But the bacteria. And the first therapy, the first clinical methodology of clinical curing, antibiotics. And using a modern clinical curing, a lot of classical epidemics disappear, killed. But as in the Star Wars movies applied the terms, Empire Strike Back, appeared a new generation of virus, new generation of bacteria, and new generation of fungi infection. The most dangerous are MDR bacteria, multi-drug resistant bacteria. Generation by generation, necessary change a family of antibiotics. Why? Because bacteria learn defense for the former types of antibacterial curing. Therefore, recently there is a war against the microworm, part of biological worm. For example, look at TV, for example, how the commercial, for example, suggest for you buying, for example, Domestos, you know, antibacterial cleaning material. And you are, in this context, a warriors of war, military campaign against the microorganism. Recently, we are living in the war against the microorganism, day by day, and no any reliable forecast for the result of this war. Okay, because if we are looking at the human history in large dimension, the humankind applied two strategies. The first one, a rat strategy, which is the strategy of rat: eat everything and adapt each possible situation. This is the rat strategy. I lived in the student hostel. I know the experience, eating everything. Open the refrigerator and ate. Private property, not so important, living in the student hostel. This is the rat strategy. But majority of developed countries apply a basic difference strategy, shark strategy. A shark strategy means, you know, it's one of the oldest animals, whole of the evolution. On the body of shark, no bones. No bones. Why? Because the shark appeared before, when the evolution invented the bones. Whole of the body formed a cartilage. And, but specialized only one. It's hunting down other fishes, no any other. It's very extremely specialized. Like a modern society. Which are the most important pillars of the modern society? Cheap water and the cheap energy. You can tell that it's not cheap. Yes, it's cheap. It's cheap. We are using in the toilet drinking water. It's cheap. Cheap. Historical comparisons are cheap. And the basic criteria of survival of modern society, saving the cheap energy and the cheap water. Probably you know the Hollywood movies about the catastrophe of civilization is broken down. But recently, even function. Good. Which are the most important danger on the context of global warming? The first one, warming of increased temperature of the global world. The second one of the most important consequences of global warming is growth of level of global ocean. And there are a lot of scenarios about the Third World War. The highest one, the proportion of probability of reason and the cause and launching event of Third World War is South Korea. Kim Jong-un pushed the red button. This is the highest one. But the second one, the crisis of Bangladesh. In the former semester, one student was in Bangladesh, recently not, Bangladesh. It's a very interesting story. Why? Because if we are looking at rank list of development, before Industrial Revolution, the most developed area, whole of the world, was Bengalia. Almost the same that Bangladesh recently. Why? Because Bengalia is a plain area. It's a plain area. Rivers came from Himalaya, high mountain of Himalaya, Ganges and Brahmaputra. Before Industrial Revolution, the richest area where the agriculture was the most developed. Bengalia was this type of area. Bengalia, global level, most developed. But in consequence of Industrial Revolution and modernization, changed the position. Bangladesh became, the same before Bengalia, almost the most underdeveloped country. Because recently, which is the proportion in the national income, proportion of agrarian productivity. 3 or 5%, no more. Change the paradigm, which was the reason of most developed position. It's lost the values. Okay, turn back to the story. The second position, war in Bangladesh, in consequence of global warming. Look at the story. On the different area, coastal area of the world, there are sensible regions for global warming. For example, Florida, I call your attention, in consequence of rising of water level, we lost large part of Florida. For example, Netherlands, historically, but I participated in one conference of water engineering in Gouda, you know, the famous hard cheese producer city, it's Gouda. I participated in a water engineering conference of Dutch Academy of Science and discussed about which is the rate of growth, rising of water level, and agreed that the maximum 2 meters. and agreed to the end of conference, we will raise the dam with 3 meters. It's enough, 3 meters. Therefore, it's no problem in the case of Florida or the Netherlands. Because it's a rich country, there is a technical experience, it's no problem. But look at Bangladesh. Bangladesh, size of Bangladesh, 150,000 square kilometers. It's, for example, Central European comparison, Hungary and Slovakia. Hungarian population less than 10 million, Slovakian, I remember, 4.5. Therefore, its estimated population in Central Europe, it's a 15, approximately, 15 million. But the population of Bangladesh, 160 million. 160 million. And because this is a plain area, very close to the water level. The red zone is less than 5 meters above Indian Ocean level. In consequence of rising water level, not only the direct covering of salt water, but infiltration to the soil destroy any possibility for agrarian productivity. Which is the reaction? Move northward. It's an inner migration. But there are a lot of elements which are critical. Indian army, the boundary guarding army, constructed around Bangladesh, constructed a double fence level. 4 meter high fences. And generally it's killed 1,000 or 2,000 illegal immigrants on the zone of boundary. 1 or 2,000 per 10 years. And there are other crucial peculiarities. Bangladesh is a Muslim country. India not. It's a Hindu. Moreover, when after the British colonial system, collapse of British colonial system, separated the Muslims and the Hindu, organized and constructed 2 Muslim countries, Pakistan, Western Pakistan, and the Eastern Pakistan, original name. Later, Western Pakistan converted to Pakistan, and the Eastern Pakistan became Bangladesh. Changed the name. But, brother country, if global warming speed increase, rise much higher speed the water level, and the local population moving northward, and after some level, density of population reach probably the unsuitable level and try to move to India. India would like to save the integrity, sovereignty, and stopping the immigrants. Applied weapon. But this is the scenario of Third World War. Launch a military campaign because on the side of Bangladesh, our army similarly. Therefore, probably the army of Bangladesh participate in the moving to the direction of India, escape from the natural disaster, and in the military conflict, probably the brother country, Pakistan, will have to Bangladesh. And Pakistan had nuclear power. India too. This is the second candidate, and Ukraine and Russia only the third one. Therefore, we are living in unstable world. But if you read the Bible, after the flood of Noah, the God promised to us never take similar. God bless you. Thanks a lot for your attention, and we will continue with the written exam. Thanks a lot.